This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. As noted earlier in the Handicappers Report, a snowy Wednesday morning. And just for people who weren't tuned in earlier, we talked on the Handicappers Report, and Anthony Mormino said if you don't have to go out, probably a good day to hunker down and stay in. I would agree with that. But if you do, I'll just give you a barometer from somebody who's been out and driving. I came down the thruway this morning, and they are maintaining the road, obviously, with the snow still falling. There's some snow on the road, so you have to slow down. I was probably going about 25 miles an hour slower than I normally go on the thruway. But that said, traffic was moving. It was just going slower, and it seemed like all the kind of the major roads were taken care of. So you can travel around. It's slow going. It's one of those days, again, if you don't have to go out, probably just as well to stay in and fire up the Capital LTB wagering account, Capital Bets account, and enjoy some racing this afternoon. Again, we have Florida Racing, Turf Paradise. You can live vicariously looking at some of those. So it's that kind of day up here. I guess the snow will wind up a little bit later this afternoon, and then things will clear up a little bit. But again, it's still February, so that's the situation we're in. And before we go on, I meant to pull up the calendar for February and just remind folks, coming up, there are some nice events here at Capital OTB, either here at the Teletheater, at some of the branches, or via online. They're coming up this month, all month long. Mondays, there's the $100 Knockout Challenge down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. On Saturday the 15th, Saturday the 22nd, there is a Showviver contest online. On the 7th, this coming Friday, there's going to be a Fan Appreciation Day out at one of the branches. On the 15th, there will be a Fan Appreciation Day at the Cleats branch. On Saturday, the 22nd, there will be a Prize Wheel Day down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. That's fun. Coming up on Friday, the 21st, another $500 happy hour bankroll with Brian Nadeau. And on Sunday, the 23rd, there will be a Sunday Syndicate bankroll via capitalotb.com. So again, a lot of great events either coming up here at the Clubhouse Racebook, online, some of the branches all month long in February. Do want to remind you also that the Bet 50, Get 50 promotion continues throughout the month of February. If you don't yet have a Capital Bets account and you sign up for a new account during the month of February, the first $50 you bet in, Capital OTB puts in another $50. Free money out there. All right, I mentioned yesterday, still love to hear from people. Viewer mail at capitalotb.com or look up, go over to Equidaily and get my contact link there. Love to hear from people who are watching the Esquire Horse Players series. I have not yet seen the episode that aired last night, but I'm watching via the internet. And so even if you don't have the Esquire Network on your cable system, you can go over to the Esquire Network website. There's a link right at the top of the page that says full episodes. If you click on that, you can pull up and watch. I'm reasonably certain you can even watch the older episodes. So they now have aired 3 of them. But the thing is, the latest episode doesn't show up on the internet for about 24 hours. So it'll either be later today or tomorrow, that episode. So I haven't had a chance to see episode 3. And I said episode 2 I was maybe a little bit unenthusiastic about. But I think they're going to try to get more towards, excuse me, the handicapping contest situation in the episode that aired last night. So it may add a little drama to it. But I did want to bring it up also because last night they were set to introduce a local handicapper, Kevin Cox, who I think is a part-time Saratoga resident, but Kevin Cox was on the series via, I believe, the Belmont handicapping contest last summer. He won that contest, so I think he got in to the mix there as far as the Horse Players television show. He's known as the Brooklyn Cowboy because he does wear a large trademark cowboy hat. Kevin Cox, again, at least a part-time local guy. So he was supposed to be introduced in last night's episode. As I say, I'll be interested to take a look at that when it comes online, either later today or tomorrow. But again, I would love to hear from you folks. If you've been watching this series, what are your thoughts on it so far? Because, again, there just wasn't enough pulling me into second episode in the series. As far as drama, or I wasn't finding, there was nothing wrong with the cast members. They all seemed nice. I just didn't have any reason for rooting for or against them as they cashed or didn't cash some bets. So there was a dramatic element that seemed to be missing, at least so far in the first episode. I gave a pass to because I think you have to introduce the characters. The second episode, though. So again, I'd be interested to see if it starts to pick up again with the episode that aired last night. Coming up on the weekend, we have noted Game On Dude in his 2014 debut. He will try to become the first three-time winner of the Grade 2 San Antonio. There is an article by Steve Anderson in the Daily Racing Form now at age 7. Game On Dude still trying to win the big one, and the connections all lamenting the past 2 Breeders' Cups where he's been kind of a fizzle. He's winning the nice stakes races earlier in the year, and then he gets to the big one. So at age 7, they're anxious to get another shot at the Breeders' Cup, but he will be back out on the track this weekend out in Southern California, getting his 2014 debut in the San Antonio. So the Bob Lewis is also going to be on the card there. So nice 3-year-old stakes race, which again Bob Baffert has an interesting entrant in there too in Midnight Hawk. The Triple Crown nominees came out within the past 4 or 5 days or so, and it was noted Todd Pletcher, and Marty McGee writes an article in the Daily Racing Forum that says essentially, you know, it'd be pretty good if you were a trainer and you had 41 horses in your barn, and much less 41 good horses, much less being Todd Pletcher, 41 horses nominated to the Triple Crown. I mean, just 41 3-year-olds. That's just a portion of his stable, but he's got 41 nominees to the Triple Crown. And as Marty McGee mentions, if you saw some of the original coverage, the original list had Pletcher as a trainer of 42 nominees, but one of those, Bashart, is now being trained by Christophe Clement. So 41 nominations out of the Pletcher barn in the Triple Crown. And the article quotes Pletcher as saying, if you had to ask me to name our top 5 right now, they would be Havana, Commissioner, Harpoon, Vince Ramos, and Intense Holiday. But then he adds, that's kind of only because they've been out there and they've done something on the track so far in the 3-year-old season. Some of the other ones may have the ability to step up over the next few weeks. McGee mentions a few more that would be kind of maybe under the radar, a little more out of the Pletcher barn, but look kind of interesting. Anchor Down, Constitution, Hartford, and Matterhorn. So Pletcher with 41, and some of these, he is already touting maybe a little bit. Some other ones that could be a little bit interesting under the radar, but we'll keep our eyes open. It was on yesterday's show, I think it was Gary Johnson that I asked who he thought was a little bit interesting on the 3-year-old trail. He said, yeah, wait, Pletcher will toss out something here that could be a little bit interesting. Speaking of interesting, this was kind of interesting in that over the weekend, Jim Mattress Mac McIngvale, who you may remember a few years ago, he was a sponsor of the Spiral at Turfway. That's Turfway's prep for the Kentucky Derby. He came in a year or 2, he was there. But Mattress Mac sponsored the big race. He's also been a horse owner over the years. He's been kind of a player in the horse game, maybe a little bit on the periphery, but he's been a name that I'm sure folks have heard, Mattress Mac. Well, it's just notable. This is not necessarily horse racing related, other than Mattress Mac is involved. But over the weekend, and in the, I guess the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, Mattress Mac said, if people had, and Mattress Mac is called Mattress Mac because he owns a large furniture store down in Houston. And he had a promotion coming into the Super Bowl that if folks purchased $6,000 or more in furniture during the promotion and had that furniture delivered prior to the Super Bowl, they would receive a full rebate if the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl. Mattress Mac takes a $7 million hit, according to the Daily Racing Forum article. I saw a couple other articles out there from mainstream newspapers as well that covered this in the day after the Super Bowl. But Mattress Mac gives away $7 million in free furniture, basically on a Super Bowl bet. And he said in one of the articles, there's There is an article today in the Racing Form, and as I said, I saw some mainstream articles. And one of the mainstream articles yesterday, he was kind of noting part of the promotion was you had to take delivery before the Super Bowl. He said his delivery trucks were out there right up until kickoff delivering furniture. Gives out $7 million in furniture based on the promotion. But, and you think, pretty big hit. And I think for a single furniture store in a single city probably was. But as he notes, he gets worldwide publicity. So it's almost like a $7 million advertising campaign, I suppose you could look at it. And not to mention $7 million retail, he paid wholesale. So he's $7 million, not necessarily the cost of what he's getting in this advertising. As I say, for a store like this, I'm not quite sure that's super effective advertising as far as price to result. But he is going to get a lot of advertising out of it, no question about it, a lot of publicity. And just interesting, as I say, though, because he is a horse owner and a guy involved in the racing game, but puts a bet on, essentially a bet on the Seahawks and loses to the tune of $7 million in furniture. Oaklawn Park has been announced that Joel Rosario will be riding Strong Mandate in the Southwest Stakes. We had Andy Serling on Monday, touched on base with him of 3-year-olds he found a little bit interesting. And among those, he mentioned he was looking forward to the return of Strong Mandate. And it has been announced now that D. Wayne Lukas reaching out to Joel Rosario to hop on board. Southwest Stakes, Oaklawn Park, that's going to be February 17th. That's the next step on their very nice 3-year-old trail down there. So Strong Mandate set to make the return. Lukas is looking for a workout coming up either on Monday or Tuesday. He says it's going to depend a little bit on the weather, so we'll keep our eyes open for that next week. Strong Mandate's most recent workout was this past Sunday morning, worked in 48.6, went out in 1 minute flat, 0.40. It was the fastest of 60 workers down there. So Strong Mandate looks set to be coming into that Southwest in pretty good order. Southwest looks like it's going to be a very good field, and I've said it for the past couple of weeks. I think that Fairgrounds 3-year-old circuit's very tough, and I think Oaklawn is going to be very interesting this year. And a horse coming up from Fairgrounds to Oaklawn, scheduled. The field has obviously not been set yet because we're quite a ways out from the Southwest, but they're looking potentially Tapiture to come up for Steve Asmussen from Fairgrounds, Chitu from Bob Baffert from California, Bourbonize potentially, Ride on Curlin, Duncan Bend, Louise Flower, who was the winner of that Springboard Mile last year, Tanzanite Cat, Walton, Coastline, the top 3 finishers in the Smarty Jones. It looks like a very potent edition of the Southwest Stakes is lining up. Speaking of Wayne Lukas and his runners, will take charge. Arrived safely at Gulfstream Park, setting up for Sunday's Don Handicap. Will take charge was Van. A couple of weeks ago, Wayne Lukas was a little bit dicey about where the next start would be because he was having trouble finding a flight from Oaklawn to Florida, and subsequently decided to van the horse down. So hopped on the van, will take charge, has arrived in good order. Again, the field has not been set yet for the Don on the weekend, but it looks like potentially will take charge will face Revolutionary, Lee, River 7, Neck and Neck, and Romanche. So that should be a nice addition to that race as well, and we will get a chance to see it because that will kick off the Fox Sports 1 Jockey Club Tour, the series of races that they are going to have on Fox Sports 1 over the course of 2014. We talked to Jason Wilson from the Jockey Club about that series a couple of weeks ago. Looking forward to that. It's a series that they say will be a little more focused on handicapping and wagering than have been the mainstream racing broadcasts over the past few years at least. So I'm looking forward to that. I will also note tonight, CNBC, there is a series called Secret Lives of the Super Rich, and Secret Lives of the Super Rich tonight will focus on the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga sale. That again is CNBC tonight at 9 p.m. Secret Lives of the Super Rich. They'll be up in Saratoga for the Fasig-Tipton sale. So look behind the sale. Should be kind of interesting. Again, CNBC, 9 o'clock tonight, looking at Saratoga. All right, we're going to go to our first break. When we come back, it's going to be Jeremy Plonk of Countdown to the Crown, horseplayernow.com. Going to take a look at some of the 3-year-old action from this past weekend. However, as we go to the break, have some video. We had Penelope Miller on with us yesterday from America's Best Racing. She was down in Florida a month or so ago now for the Eclipse Awards. And while she was there, popped over to Palmettos one morning and took a nice little video that's on the America's Best Racing website. And we're going to take a look at that video because I said to Penelope yesterday, I think all of us, certainly in the wintertime, we're looking at Gulfstream Park and some of the Florida racing, and you look in the training line, the workout lines, and you see that Palmettos abbreviation. We're all familiar with the racetrack and the outfits that work out there, but I have certainly never had a close-up look at it. Really a nice facility, and you get a feeling of that from this video. So again, it's about a minute and a half. As we go to the commercial break, we'll get a close-up look at that Palmettos facility. When we come back from this break, as noted, it'll be Jeremy Plonk. A little later on, Margot Flynn from Tampa Bay Downs. All of that right after this.
It's a big, wide open facility that's kind of like between a racetrack and a training center. You can really let a horse down on this turf course. You can get your horse fit on the main track. I like the way the barns are set up. They're airy, they're not closed in. I'd rather be at a place like this any day.
A lot more relaxed. It's run very well. Like, the people here are really nice, I must say. It's a great place to be. I love coming here.
It's got a world-class turf course, which to me has been great because the kind of horses that we're bringing from New York down here are mostly biased towards running on the grass. So to be able to work on the grass, on a great grass course 5 days a week, and not be limited to just stake horse, it's just a really great thing for me.
It's a great facility. It's got a double wide turf course, which very few tracks have anyway. And this is just a training center, so it's very nice. I think it's healthier for him and nicer for him. Yeah, it's less tension probably. You don't hear the races going by all afternoon like you do at a regular racetrack.
There is something to this. There's no magic potion. You know, there's no pixie dust. I think out here, Palmettos horses thrive. It creates a different mindset with horses, and it gets them to actually be horses.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB Television Network.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Wagering at capitalotbbet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Shamrock Showdown on March 1st. So sign up today, online at capitalotb.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Wednesday morning means a regular visit from Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, and Countdown to the Crown. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Seth.
And Jeremy, I'm gonna have to say, I pulled up the most recent edition of Countdown to the Crown, and again, I always want to tout people to this, countdowntothecrown.com, or they can go to your horseplayernow.com website, and every Friday you put out a new edition of Countdown to the Crown. A lot of really good information. This past edition, I think, was 10 or 11 pages long, includes your top 10. You preview some of the big weekend races for 3-year-olds, not only the stakes, but allowance and maiden races as well. Really comprehensive and fun. But Jeremy, after this last Friday, I'm going to start calling you Shecky, because under 3 things you won't read anywhere else. Luckily, I was not drinking milk, or it would have come out of my nose, because and I don't know whether I can give the whole thing on television, but I'll just say the punchline was essentially, it was the most anticipated ball drop since at least New Year's Eve, which I was laughing. That was very good touch there on Countdown to the Crown.
Well, I try to keep it a little bit of light and fun at least, and get some attention in at the beginning. Last year when I did the column with DRF.com, they didn't appreciate some of that humor. So we were proud to bring it back this year as it's on CountdownToTheCrown.com and keep it loose and fun. Look, I figure if you're going to take the time to read 10 pages and get into things like that, you deserve something a little bit off the wall.
Yeah, it worked for me, like I said. Thankfully, I was not drinking milk, or I would have been like a 5th grader. Would have come right out my nose. I laughed, no question about it.
That.
All right, let's get a look, because it was a nice, fun weekend of 3-year-old action. Again, both stakes action and allowance races as well. Let's kick things off and go back to Aqueduct and the Withers. Hats off to the New York breds. We're going to watch the stretch run here. Number 5, Samrat. Number 1, Uncle Si, Ding Dong It Out. Had Andy Serling on Monday, and as he said, maybe some of the other jockeys will pick up on this and see that, yes, you can use your speed early. Yes, you can be out there and be in a ding-dong battle and still be very dominant at the end of a race. Samrat, very impressive here. Is he going to get by Uncle Si? But again, these are pretty lightly raced horses, so I think both of these horses are going to be fun to watch going forward.
Well, I agree with that, because they had upside and they had question marks. You know, could they move into open company? Now, there were only a couple rivals in here who are not graded stakes kind of horses, I don't think, behind them. So is it a true open company test when the 2 New York breds leave the state bred ranks and then, you know, those 2 lock up? Probably not the truest test, but they answered a lot of questions. I mean, for one, Samrat proved he didn't have to have the lead. You know, he pretty much daylighted all the fields he had been in, and he showed that he could be a horse who could sit, you know, press another horse, and then prevail at the end. And so I thought that was a positive in his camp. And then also, you know, with Uncle Si, what you have to look at him and say, look, he was just coming off a big maiden win. Could he handle a step up in class, take heat against another horse? And he was pinned against the rail the entire trip, and he kept fighting on. So this is a positive step forward for both horses. I don't know that this race was particularly strong. Obviously, there was no depth to it whatsoever. So what we're going to learn about these horses, where they fit for a Kentucky Derby or a Preakness or a Belmont, is going to come in a subsequent race down the road. But what we did learn this weekend is they both belong on the trail at this point, and they ran well enough to advance their resumes to make you want to see them at least one more time.
Yeah, and I've been saying that for the past 2 or 3 weeks maybe with some of these early steps on the Derby trail. They seem to be a lot of barometer type races of connections, understandably trying to figure out, do we belong and do we go to the next step? And certainly these 2 do belong, at least moving on to the next step.
Seth, I think it's a lot like if you're a college sports fan or even an NFL fan. It's that intersectional matchup. It's that game out of conference. It's Duke traveling to play Syracuse. You know, that kind of thing like that, like we saw in college basketball this past weekend. Get out of conference, see how you match up against horses kind of out of your region or out of your division. And so those maiden horses who are nice maidens, can they step up and go out of conference and go into the stakes ranks and make that big leap from the maiden to the stakes ranks like we saw, you know, with Uncle Si? And so that's the kind of thing you're looking for now. This isn't the Final Four. This isn't the NCAA tournament yet, again. But it's that non-conference matchup, I think, at this point in the year that we're looking at. Everything is about March. I did a note in the countdown a couple weeks ago, but the percentage of horses who win the Derby and Preakness who have success in March is what it is all about. It's not about January, February, or even April. April has been overrun on the calendar now. The horses who have success in the Derby and Preakness are horses who win races in March. That's when we want to circle all those March winners and then start filtering it down from there.
Yeah, in year 2014, these trainers are now looking for a layoff before the big race that does put them into April. There is no question. It's much, much different than when I was a kid. There's no question about that. All right, let's look at Gulfstream Park's 3-year-old event from this past Saturday. Grade 3 Hutchison, 7 furlongs. This one had a purse of $200,000. We're going to watch the stretch run of Wildcat Red, 2-1 favorite, and deservedly so. Came out of the close-up finish in the Gulfstream Park Derby. That was at a mile. The cut back to 7 furlongs was absolutely going to make this horse very, very tough. ZZ ran second, and I think it is kind of interesting as well. The disappointment, Trailblaze, obviously, from Todd Pletcher. And I won't say disappointment, but I've said a couple times we've watched this race this week. Mighty Brown, to me, 27-1, so you can't say the 7th place finish was disappointing necessarily via the odds. But I'm still scratching my head now. Comes out of that Pasco, tosses in a dud at Ocala, and now a dud in the Hutchison. Where'd that Pasco come from for Mighty Brown? But on the upside, again, as we watch the stretch run, Wildcat Red gets it done and does so pretty convincingly.
Well, I think you'll see that route to sprint move can be very successful for horses, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily a long-term sprinter. And that's part of the problem, I think, with Mighty Brown is he's not a sprinter, and he was fresh and strong enough to win that race on the cutback and distance. As we're also seeing here with Wildcat Red, the cutback and distance was successful. Is Wildcat Red going to go on to become a top-level sprinter? I don't think so. That horse, I don't think, would repeat good sprint efforts over and over and over again. He's more of a middle-distance horse. So he's going to get a chance to stretch back out to a mile or a mile and a 16th and see what he can do. He's not a mile and an eighth or a mile and a quarter horse, I don't think, on that pedigree, nor the way that they came home in the Hutchison. You know, the Hutchison came home okay, but not, you know, spectacularly. So on the clock, and visually he looked just fine. So, you know, I think he's a horse who's a middle-distance horse. He's not a 6-furlong sprint type, and he's not a mile and a quarter type. He's going to fit somewhere in the middle. Races like this at 7 furlongs or a 1-turn mile would be good for him. Wildcat Red would be a horse I would think for something like the Derby Trial at Churchill would make a lot of sense as his goal.
Haskell down the road?
Yeah, and the Haskell can usually stretch a distance out of a horse. You know, Monmouth is a very speed-favoring track. They always soup it up on Haskell Day, and the speed carries even more than usual. And so, yeah, I think a horse who's a little bit distance challenged should look at the Haskell as kind of like their Travers. You know, it's always that race for somebody who's not quite up to the big-time distances. So, yeah, I think a race like that would probably be a worthy goal.
Speaking of which, what do you make of Verrazano going over to Europe?
I mean, out of left field, I didn't expect to see that. It's usually, you know, the European interests aren't too interested in the American horses coming over with what they're treated with over here and not allowed to run on and train on over there. It's a surprising move. Obviously, it's got something to do with probably stud potential and them wanting to stand him for Coolmore, and maybe they want to just expose him to European breeders and think that he could be a top miler sire. And so if he runs well on the turf over there and intrigues, could really up his stud value. If not, they can always send him back to the U.S. and stand stud, and people will want to breed to him to create sprinters and milers, which are so, you know, abundant in our American breed.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a head scratcher, no question about it. All right, let's go over to the other side of the state, down in Florida this weekend. Sam F. Davis, Grade 3 event, $250,000. They are going a mile and a 16th, and it'll be the 2 Pletcher runners. Nice Pletcher exacta, and I'll tell you, Jeremy, before the race, I looked up and saw the other Pletcher offering 12-1, so I jumped in and got a little exact action just on the uncoupled half of the entry, particularly on the Derby Trail. I think Pletcher has kind of done this before, snuck some horses in where they've beaten a shorter priced half of a Pletcher uncoupled entry. But at Tampa on Saturday, it was Vince Ramos from Edgar Prado getting it done over the fast closing Harpoon. Vince Ramos is going to be the number 4 horse as we watch the stretch run. Harpoon coming on the outside in kind of a blanket finish kind of a situation. Harpoon will be the number 1. Vince Ramos now eligible for that $1 million bonus they have at Tampa Bay if he adds the Tampa Bay Derby and the Kentucky Derby. But a pretty nice ride here. Pretty cagey ride, holding the rail there for Edgar Prado. So hats off to him. But what were your thoughts coming out of the Sam F. Davis?
Well, it was good positioning. I mean, this is the horse who was cross-entered in the Hutchison at Gulfstream, and Pletcher made the move to send him with Harpoon to Tampa, even though he already had Harpoon in the race, and to send 2 at Tampa when he could have run Vince Ramos at Gulfstream in the Hutchison. So this was a smart move to get him around the 2 turns, and it worked for him. You know, this was a modest pace. They ran 24s most of the way around, and then fell apart to almost 27 seconds the fourth quarter. So it was a slow fourth quarter, and they all kind of piled up on top of each other at the end, and that's usually a bad sign that a race isn't of great quality. But Tampa can get those kind of results. It's kind of like Oaklawn. you really have to be careful when you analyze Tampa races and say, oh, the field didn't spread out, or the times or the fractions were slower. They really slowed at the end. That's pretty typical of Tampa in most cases, and rarely will you see a truly brilliant performance over that track, like we saw with Street Sense in any given Saturday back in the 07 trail. That was a brilliant performance and a complete anomaly, usually on the Tampa Bay trail. But these horses have had some success moving on, so you have to consider them. Harpoon keeps running second a lot, finds ways to lose races, and you kind of lose a little confidence in him that he wasn't able to get this one done over what I think is a lesser stablemate. If you compared the two of them, Pinceramos and Harpoon, I think Harpoon is the more talented racehorse, but he's not been able to put it together. I mean, he's run second 4 out of 5 times, and maybe the light bulb goes off for him. I thought it would happen after that big maiden win, but he kind of, he kind of just came up on the short end again.
And Noble Cornerstone, obviously, the disappointment here. Kent DeSormo said freaked out a little bit in the gate prior to the race and really left his race there. Just never got involved, and that was when I was really looking forward to the return of that one coming out of the Springboard Mile. But hopefully he lives to fight another day, and we'll get a better barometer on him next time.
Yeah, I mean, he just, like you said, he wigged out before the race and left his race on the track, lethargic out, and just really never got his head into the game. And it was a race that, it didn't set up for big-time closers. The pace wasn't there. But it did fall apart late, even though there was a slow pace throughout. The slow fractions at the end should have had that horse coming on and running with a little bit, but he was just mentally not in the game at all that day. He could wake up. You're going to get a huge price on him the next time. It's one of those watch the workout tab. If Ward gets his horse back and he's really on edge and working 59s and a minute flats and 47s and that sort of thing like that, then you'll know he's sharp, and maybe he's kind of a bounce-back candidate next time. If he's out there working lethargically in 52 or something like that for a half mile, then then maybe it's a horse who just needs some time off and needs to regroup, that there's something else going on. But, he was definitely the disappointment for me. I thought he'd run well in the race. In fact, he ran, up the track as my top pick in the race, and I struggled on all 3 of these races this past weekend. My top picks all ran poor races, and so I kind of walk out of it afterwards trying to figure out, well, what did I do wrong, or did the races just not run as many people expected? I think a lot of people thought Noble Cornerstone would run better than he did.
And the fact of the matter is that's true for a lot of us on these Derby Trail kind of races, these Derby Trail stakes. Every year you see, Vince Ramos wins at 12-1. Every year, along the way, you'll see some upsets. And the fact of the matter is, these are developing horses, and at any point, some of them can pop up and really get improvement from start to start, and some of them can kind of, they were a little bit precocious, and they're not living up to that as they move along. So it's not really surprising that we all do it, kind of struggle sometimes with these Derby Trail races as the results are maybe a little bit chaotic. But let's now shift away from the stakes action. I want to go back to a maiden race on Friday from Fairgrounds. This is one you previewed in your countdown to the Crown column. You were kind of taking a look at Glacken 2 in that 7th at Fairgrounds on Friday as maybe being a little more of a barometer for Unknown Road, who won like a freak in the first time start and then followed up with a little bit of a dud. Glacken 2 finished second in that freakish performance behind Unknown Road, well behind, almost 12 lengths behind. But we were kind of looking at this maiden race and seeing what Glacken 2 could do as we watched the stretch run. Glacken 2 will be the #1 horse and will wind up running second in this race. The winner in here, however, is going to be a first-time starter from Larry Jones and Fox Hill Farms. Rosie Napravnik on board. The Trunk Monkey, old-fashioned as the sire. So the Trunk Monkey might be interesting watching going forward.
He was, because Glacken 2 got a loose lead in this race. He was fast and he set fast fractions, but he cleared the field and looked like he might be gone. And the Trunk Monkey, reeled him in nicely. They went 1:10.30 for 6 furlongs. That's fast over the Fairgrounds Strip. This was a good race. The third-place finisher, Embellishing Bob, put a big circle around him. He got rocked at the start and still came on and didn't get beat that far behind what looks like 2 really nice horses from Power Barnes. You got Calhoun and Jones there running 1-2, and this Margolis trainee, Embellishing Bob, ran a good third. So put him on your horses to watch list as a horse to bet back next time. I think it makes Unknown Road look fine. I mean, I think this race, Glacken 2 came back and ran a very good race and got beat by what looks to be a promising upstart, the Trunk Monkey. So I think it's a positive for Unknown Road. Obviously, with him, it's about physical issues and whether, gelding him will take care of any of his mental problems. But I think this validates that opening day or that opening win for Unknown Road in his first try at Fairgrounds after leaving New York. in that, you know, he dominated a horse, Glacken 2, who came back and ran well here. So I think it's a plus all around. I think the top 3 in this race are all horses that have some significance. The problem is it's a 6-furlong race. The calendar is flipped to February, and they're very, very far behind at this point. You know, it's different if a horse has already won a 1.125 maiden race or a 1.16 maiden race, you know, and are moving into some of those stakes ranks. These horses are way, way, way behind the Trunk Monkey and, of course, the ones who haven't broken their maiden yet. I mean, for him to make that level move up, I mean, you're talking about going here to the Risen Star, to the Louisiana Derby. That's a lot to cram in a short amount of time. And then what do you have left for the Derby? So I think you're almost too far behind if you're sprinting in the maiden ranks right now.
Yeah, and recognizing that, for going back to years past, reading your countdown to the Crown column, as I said at the top, you do some previews of weekend 3-year-old races that look not only at the stakes, but allowance races and maiden races as well. And as I say, going back to years past, it eventually hits a date on the calendar where those maiden races will fall off and then the allowance races fall off. So I would assume we're kind of getting to that point where these maiden races are, as you say, the horses calendar-wise are a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, when we get to March 1st, I definitely drop everything off. And sometimes there's, you know, some comparative company lines. Hey, we want to watch this race because maybe this horse will tell us a little bit more about that race we saw a month ago, you know, like the Unknown Road race and things along that line. But we're not necessarily scouting horses that we think that can become Triple Crown contenders at that point. We're using it more as a matchup and trying to figure out strength of schedule and those sort of things like that. And at this point, you know, I think you can make the leap from maiden to allowance to stakes at this point, but a route, I mean, or at least 7 furlongs or a 1-turn mile. To go from a 6-furlong maiden race right now all the way to project the horse out to be a Derby horse is a big stretch.
Yeah, all right, and let's go to one of those allowance races that was held over the weekend at Oaklawn. This is a non-winners of 2 other than, and this one I wanted to pull up again. You had talked a little bit about it in the countdown to the Crown column, but I wanted to pull it up to focus on the horse you mentioned, but also the race this horse was coming out of. We're going to watch Boji Moon, the number 8 horse, in the allowance event last Saturday at Oaklawn. Number 8, Boji Moon, will wind up winning this race as the 3-2 favorite. This is the horse folks may remember, Iowa bred, won a couple of races to begin the career last summer at Prairie Meadows, then went over to Kentucky Downs and won an open stakes race, the Kentucky Downs Juvenile. A little bit of a fizzle in the Bourbon. Last time out, ran 5th in that Springboard Mile. Comes back out of the Springboard Mile to win on Saturday. Again, now we've had Walt come out of that as a 4th place finisher to run very nicely in the Smarty Jones. We just saw the fizzle from Noble Cornerstone. I'm looking forward to Louise Flower, who I think is looking at that next race on the 3-year-old Crown, 3-year-old trail down at Oaklawn. Louise Flower, to me, has now been flattered a little bit by some of these performances, but Boji Moon on Saturday, interesting in there.
Yeah, Boji Moon beat older horses in this race. You know, Oaklawn runs 3 and up races after about the first, 4 or 5 weeks of their racing season, so they're into that 3-year-olds and older in some of the races. So it was an interesting placement for Boji Moon to take on the older horses. You go 110 and change at Oaklawn, you've done something. That track is slow, and so this was a really good performance from a very fast horse. Boji Moon can't run far enough to be a factor in the Triple Crown races, but again, what he did was he emphasized that he is good. He's a strong horse. His 5th in the Springboard Mile makes Louise Flower look a little bit better, and I think this is a really good horse for the Derby trial at Churchill Downs. 7 furlongs over a track I think he'll handle, and Boji Moon is one of those kind of horses that I think if you're Chris Richard, the trainer, you're circling that Derby trial on the first Saturday of the Churchill meet the week before the Derby, and you're trying to figure out how to get there. I think that's really a good goal for that horse at the end of the spring.
And Jeremy, just before we go, I'll touch on Derby Future Pool. The morning line was announced. Future Pool goes from the 6th to the 8th. And I'm wondering if anything attracted your attention. What attracted my attention? I mentioned it earlier today already. Who's going to take 10-1 on Honor Code and Shared Belief? I mean, 10-1, if all systems are go, is too short for me. But the situation they're in now, and it's not going to surprise me if that morning line holds up. I think some of the betting public will jump in at that price. But boy, that's a dicey proposition.
Yeah, you won't get my money at that price, that's for sure. I mean, I'm looking for 30 to 40 to 1 this time out because you're looking 3 months away. Most of these horses are still 2 races away. You figure this, most horses are going to be around 10-1 or more in the Derby. Other than maybe 2 horses on the tote board are in the single-digit odds, typically in a 20-horse field. Since they took away the mutual field, You know, you're looking at a 9-2, 5-1 kind of favorite. You're looking at a horse that's 6, 7, 8-1 as a second choice, and then everybody else is 10 and up. Well, if you're still 2 starts away, just compound that. I mean, if you need 10-1 now, you need 20-1 to get there. You need 30-1 to get to the next prep. So to me, I think you're looking at least 30-1 and up to be betting a horse at this point in the season. There are some horses in this pool that are going to offer those kind of odds who I think are attractive type runners. You know, if you made me say who is the Derby winner right now, and there's a Triple Crown Fantasy League draft tonight amongst a lot of the industry guys, Watchmaker and Dick Downey and you know, John Asher and the folks at Churchill and stuff that I'll be involved in tonight. I've got the #1 pick in the draft. I drew the lucky straw this year. And if you told me to say who is the Derby winner right now, I would go with Strong Mandate, because I just think that he's got everything in front of him. He's working like a champ. He's got a good prep path down there at Oaklawn, and you know Lucas is going to get him there as long as he's healthy. That doesn't mean he's the Derby winner. Now, if you're playing in the futures, you're trying to get a horse who's going to get there. I mean, you're not just trying to pick a horse who you think is the best horse right now. The best horse right now is probably Shared Belief or Honor Code. Nobody's going to argue with that. But at 10-1, this far out, and those kind of horses who have some issues about them, even in a fantasy draft, I'm not sure I want to take them #1 right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when this wager ends to see where the betting public goes. Certainly All Others is going to be favored, but I'll be interested to see how short the individual top 2 or 3 are in this first pool this year.
A quick note on the All Others, if I can do it. In the Countdown to the Crown preseason annual, we did a study of the parimutuel wagering and the Kentucky Derby future wager over the 15 years. Pool 2, the next pool, it's actually Pool 3 this year because they had the November, but that middle pool, the next one coming up, the ROI for All Others is tremendous and dwarfs All Others in the first pool. Now, All Others is 7 for 15 all time in the first pool. In the next pool, I believe it's 6 for 15, but the ROI is tremendous because that price goes way up. If you'd like to play All Others, wait one more pool, and it's not a bad gamble.
Oh, interesting. Very good. All right. Jeremy, as always, appreciate the insights, and we'll talk to you next week. Hopefully everybody will be dug out from under the snow by then. As I said earlier, though, that's the nice thing about horse racing. We can all live vicariously this afternoon watching Tampa and Gulfstream, so at least we got that going for us. But again, thanks for the visit. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, mush on.
There you go. Jeremy Plante, CountdownToTheCrown.com, and also HorsePlayerNow.com. We'll take our next break. When we come back, Margot Flynn from the aforementioned Tampa Bay Downs.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Cassano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB Bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. Very happy to be joined now by our friend Margot Flynn from Tampa Bay Downs. Good morning, Margot.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. I don't hear Margot in my ear. I hear her from the other room. Margot, talk. Just talk. There we go. Now I got you. Now,
okay,
now I have you. Margot, give us a little, for folks who are playing this afternoon, give us a little idea what, as we live vicariously, because it is snowing to get out the band up here, but give us a little live vicariously weather forecast for Tampa this afternoon.
Well, I hate to tell you, but it's not the greatest day down here. It's only about 73 right now. And it was fairly foggy this morning. We have the opportunity for some passing showers, but it's clear at the moment.
All right. 73 sounds pretty good. Compared to what we've been the past couple of weeks in the snow falling. So, again, we will still live a little bit vicariously watching Tampa this afternoon. Margot, we're going to get a couple ideas for this afternoon and then look back at last weekend because obviously you had a great card. But before we do that, things have switched up. You got a different schedule for racing in February, correct?
That's right. This week marks the first of our 5-day-a-week schedule. So Wednesday through Sunday. Tampa is all over the place.
Very good. And now with NYRA over on Thursdays, adding yourselves to that Wednesday is going to make Wednesdays a lot of fun for the players, certainly up here and across the country as well. I love Tampa, and I love the turf racing down there. I think there's a lot of value. And, in fact, Marty McGee wrote you a great column in the Racing Form.
Yes, he did. He covered all the aspects and gave a nice summary of the last year and all that's been going on here at Tampa, and we've been really holding our own this season. So. And
give us a little idea about this season. Now, certainly, boy, the weather up here in the Northeast, Parks has just gotten hammered. I feel bad for the folks that are out there, but with the cold weather and some of the snow and whatnot, the various tracks up here have had their days off, but really the cold and wet weather has hit everybody. Fairgrounds has been hit, and I know you and Gulfstream have had some wet days as well, so certainly the weather has affected things. But overall, how's the 2013-2014 meet going so far?
Very good. Our handle per race has been up, but you're absolutely correct. These races that have come off the turf have really been disappointing for everybody concerned. The horsemen, obviously, because they want to run on the turf, and the bettors because the fields have scratched down to small numbers, and it's something that we're quite frankly not used to here at Tampa.
Yeah, again, the weather has just been a funny situation for everybody kind of over here east of the Mississippi. It's affected, north and south this year regardless. But, again, hopefully we've gotten over the hump a little bit and things are going to even out. And we'll look again vicariously from up here in the Northeast and enjoy your weather down there. And before we move on to some specifics, I just also wanted to touch on, we're into the meet now a ways, and just touch on a little bit trainers and jockeys, maybe some to keep an eye on. I certainly note Ronnie Allen, red hot. Of course, De La Cruz had the unfortunate spill and went to the sidelines. But Daniel Centino, a guy who I like down there at Tampa, seemed to, I thought he was going to spend the winter up in Maryland, and I think he sat in the jockey's room that first week and looked up at Tampa Bay Downs, and he was living vicariously. So he's come back down and seems to have warmed up a little bit. But Ronnie Allen, a nice lead on the trainer's side. Jamie Ness, who came into the meet saying, I don't know whether I'm as loaded as I have been in previous years, but he's right back on top as well.
That's right. Ronnie's having a phenomenal meet, and of course he did benefit from Fernando having the fall. Fernando is back in the saddle, though, so he's back to his winning ways already. So he is going to be a factor to be reckoned with, I assume, once again. But you're right that Daniel Centino, who got off to a slow start when he first arrived, has started picking things up and putting things together. Harry Vega, a newcomer to the season, to the surface here at Tampa this season, is also having a quietly very good meet, bringing in some long shots. So he's certainly a rider to watch, and he's always ridden the grass very well.
Yeah, I've noticed that also. And the horse, the jockeys that can get those horses at a little bit of a price, they attract your attention and get an extra little check mark occasionally. And I will mention one other jockey before you move on. This has to be a little bit of a sense of pride for the folks down at Tampa. David Amos has been nominated to the George Wolf Award.
That's right, and he's been representing the jockeys as a guild rep for many, many years, both here and at Boston. So he's been doing a fantastic job, and we wish him well, and the outcome should be coming up within a few days.
Yeah, that's a nice honor for those guys. So, and just a tip of the cap to him to get nominated as well. Margo, let's take a look at a couple of races for this afternoon before we go back to last week and get some of your thoughts on what was really a nice day of racing down there this past Saturday. But first up, we'll take a look at the 7th today, a maiden special scheduled for 1 mile and a 16th on the grass. What were your thoughts on race 7?
Well, I like number 7, Solitary Life. Had not the greatest trip in the world. Had the outside post and kind of had an in and out kind of running style the entire way. So I think drawing much better at the gate today, has to benefit from that trip first time on the turf. Look for this horse to fare much better. Yeah,
we did the handicapping program just before this, and I was looking at Gulfstream. My partner was looking at Tampa, but while he was looking at this race, that 7 horse jumped out at me. So I'm really interested that you threw that one in the mix. You have one more for us this afternoon?
One more race or one more horse in that race?
One more race.
Oh, okay. I also like the 2 in that race as well. And the 9th race, which is the Turf Dash Prep, is 5 furlongs on the turf, and it's an outstanding field to look at, horses that are 5 furlong specialists. But it's hard to go by Hold On Smokey, I think. He's a fighter. He's won 17 races in his career. He's 9, and he just fires time after time.
Yeah, and he's interesting. He goes in for the tag, but I think at 9 years old, I don't think anybody's going to jump in for the 100,000. I think they're safe. But you're absolutely right. He's one of those very hard knockers that is fun to watch, and certainly those kind of are fan favorites too, I think. All right, Margo, let's go back to this past weekend, because certainly it was as I say, a fun day down there with the Sam Davis being the highlight on the card. We watched the Sam Davis a little bit earlier, and it was Vince Ramos, the other half of the uncoupled Pletcher entry, getting it done. Harpoon runs second, also for Pletcher, so a Pletcher exacta. It was a nice blanket finish. Vince Ramos gets the nice crafty ride from Edgar Prado. What were your thoughts coming out of the Sam Davis? And more importantly, you have that $1 million bonus on the line. Have they indicated they're coming back for the Derby?
They certainly mentioned it in the winner's circle. So, of course, we'll have to wait and see how the horse is training, etc., and Todd's thoughts on that. But they were very excited when they were in the winner's circle. It was an interesting race, a thrilling finish. I have to say one of the most memorable finishes of Sam Davis in quite a while. But Harpoon ran very greenly, so I think coming out of this race that he is going to move up considerably. Vince Ramos, obviously, we want to do very well because there's $1 million on the line if he can win the Tampa Bay Derby and go on to the Kentucky Derby. Plus, we have a fan bonus of $100,000. So the connections have a new person that has a rooting interest in this. So I'm sure he's checking the works and seeing how the horse is doing.
I was going to mention that Ben Wheelock, after the race, they pulled his entry out of the box, and he's now eligible. They're eligible for $1 million, but if they get the $1 million, he picks up $100K. So that would be a nice day for Ben.
That's right. I think if it was myself, I might be driving over to Palm Beach and take a look and see how the horse is doing. But I'm sure Todd doesn't need any advice from Mr. Wheelock. But it's kind of a fun thing.
Oh, absolutely. I thought it was a great promotion, and I thought the $1 million bonus was kind of interesting as well. That adds a little juice to your series also. Let's go a little earlier on the card, the 3-year-old fillies, and in fact, we just watched the stretch run. Maybe the guys can rack that up again. The Suncoast, again, it is the 3-year-old fillies, which I think is turning out to be a kind of a fun division at various points around the country as well. But we're going to watch the number 1, Please Explain, get it done for Tommy Proctor. Kind of a similar rail move from Julien Leperot that we saw from Prado with Vince Ramos, but not the blanket finish. Please Explain does it pretty convincingly, and I think this is going to be a 3-year-old filly that we got to keep our eyes on.
I do as well. She just opened up on that field, and there was horses in there that some of the trainers I talked to earlier in the day had some high hopes for. So it was not a walkover jumping out of the gate, but she made it look that way. And she has a kind of name that's going to haunt me, like Not Surprising, but Please Explain is going to be one of those names that keeps coming back, and you're talking in circles at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But But no, she looked great, and I think she's a filly with a future.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, I think that 3-year-old filly division is shaping up to be a lot of fun, and she'll be a player in it, no doubt about it. Let's go out to the final stakes race of the day. Race number 10 was the race right after the Sam Davis. And this race was interesting as we watched the stretch run. The number 6 in here, Salto for Todd Pletcher. Going to take the lead at the top of the stretch, and Salto was the 1-2 favorite. And after the race, Todd Pletcher said, you know what, I don't think my horse saw the eventual winner coming up. And as we watch the stretch run, you'll kind of see how that can happen, because a horse kind of comes and covers up Salto, and then we're watching the number 1 Guy's Reward make a nice move on the outside here and just sweep by both of them. So Guy's Reward at 14-1, kind of interesting, getting the luck of the play in here.
It is. However, he did have the wet turf angle. He had won on the wet turf before, had the best record on the wet turf, and came through again with a yielding course. So it's definitely an angle to look at, and he returned a handsome payoff for the people that were paying attention to the program.
Yeah, it was a Dale Romans horse that it'd been a while since this horse had its picture taken, so I can kind of understand the odds. But being from Romans, and as you say, with maybe a little info that you could have sussed out there from the past performances, that 14-1 was very attractive, particularly if you wanted to take a little bit of a shot against the short-priced Pletcher horse. But again, you have Pletcher, you have Dale Romans, Tommy Proctor, who is running some horses there regularly at Tampa this season. But boy, some big names showed up. Another, congratulations on another nice stakes day down at Tampa.
Yes, no, everyone came, and it was a great day. It was a great day of racing, and it was a shame that the turf was yielding. We always like to be able to showcase our wonderful turf course to its best, but still a thrilling race on all accounts.
Yeah, and again, Margot, we certainly enjoy up here in the Northeast watching the Tampa Bay races, because everybody loves the turf racing, and that's what we get to enjoy with those Florida racetracks, Tampa being, as I say, right up there on my menu during the wintertime. I think there's a lot of value and a lot of fun, and so far the season has played out, and we expect it to continue. We'll look forward to coming up Tampa Bay Derby. Certainly we'll check in before then, because again, that $1 million bonus may be on the line with the Pletcher horse Vincent Ramos, the fan being in line for $100,000 potentially if the Tampa Bay and Kentucky Derby are added to the resume for Vincent Ramos. So we'll be looking forward to that. We appreciate the visit this morning. Margot, we'll talk to you down the line.
Thank you, Seth.
All right, Margot Plynn from Tampa Bay Downs. A little earlier, we talked with Jeremy Plonk, our regular Wednesday morning visitor from HorsePlayerNow.com and CountdownToTheCrown.com. That's going to wrap things up for Racing Across America for this Wednesday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little bit earlier, handicapper support. Anthony Mormino and I were in here, in fact, looking at those Florida tracks. I took a look at Gulfstream. He took a look at Tampa. Hopefully we gave you some good ideas. So again, on this snowy day in the Northeast, live vicariously from some of these tracks around the country, see some sunshine, and hopefully cash some tickets. And we'll see you again tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.